Let me paint you a picture. Imagine this massive, global plan to power our future with clean, reliable nuclear energy. It's backed by governments, tech giants, you name it. Now, imagine that entire grand vision is teetering on a single, fatal flaw, a flaw that's been hiding in plain sight for over a decade. This is the story of an energy crisis that is brewing right under our noses, and almost no one is talking about it.
Okay, so right now, the story everyone's telling about nuclear energy is, well, it's incredibly exciting. We are definitely living through what everyone is calling a new nuclear boom, a full-blown renaissance for the atom.
And if you want to get a sense of just how big this boom is, get a load of this number, 150. That's how many new nuclear reactors China alone is planning to build. That isn't just a lot of demand. That is a staggering amount. And hey, it's not just China. This demand is global, and it is very, very real. You've got tech giants like Microsoft and Google who are desperate for massive amounts of power for their AI data centers. Then, at COP29, you had over 30 countries stand up and pledge to triple their nuclear capacity by 2050 to hit their net zero goals. So yeah, the demand side of this equation, it's rock solid. But this is where we get to the real heart of the matter. What if this entire incredible boom is built on one simple and deeply flawed assumption? The assumption that the uranium fuel we need will just be there when we need it. Because when you actually dig into the data, you find something pretty shocking. The problem we're facing isn't a demand crisis. It's an exploration crisis. The issue isn't our ambition. It's a critical, and I mean critical, shortage in the supply pipeline itself. Now, it's really important we're clear on what an exploration crisis actually means. It does not mean the world is geologically running out of uranium. Not at all. What it means is that we are running out of discovered, developed, and permitted deposits that are actually ready to be mined. This is a crisis of time and readiness, not a crisis of rocks in the ground. And look, this isn't some pie-in-the-sky theory. No, when you actually crunch the numbers, you can see the anatomy of a supply cliff forming. And based on the data we have right now, it's not a possibility. It's a mathematical certainty. Just take a look at these numbers. By 2040, the world is on track to need over 150,000 tons of uranium every single year. But the supply from all of our current existing mines, that's projected to shrink to just 60,000 tons. That gap you see there? That's not a crack, it's a chasm. And we're not just talking about abstract figures here, we're talking about real mines, legendary mines that have powered the world for decades, and they are all nearing retirement. You've got Cigar Lake in Canada, the world's highest grade mine. It could be shut by 2036. Rössing, which has been running since the 70s, is winding down. By 2048, even McArthur River, the biggest high-grade mine on the planet, is scheduled to close. The old workhorses are getting tired. So the obvious question is, all right, fine, so let's just go find some new mines, right? Well, that's where we slam into the single biggest hurdle in this entire industry, the almost unbelievable lead times. We're talking about a 30-year wait. Okay, let's take Cigar Lake. It's the perfect case study here. It was first discovered way back in 1981, but they didn't even start building the mine until 2005, and it took until 2014, a full 33 years after they found it, before it produced its first pound of uranium. 33 years. And you might be thinking, okay, but that's just one mine. But it's not. Cigar Lake is not an outlier. That massive gap you see between finding a deposit and actually getting uranium out of the ground is the norm for this industry. We're operating on timelines measured in decades, not years. So just let that sink in for a second. The implication here is incredibly stark. Any deposit that we haven't even found yet, one that is just a geological theory today, cannot realistically help us before 2040 at the very earliest. It's simply going to arrive too late to stop the supply cliff we can already see coming. So how did we get here? What's the root cause of this whole mess? Well, the mines that we're going to need for the 2040s, we should have been discovering them back in the 2010s. So what happened during that critical window? The answer, unfortunately, is almost nothing. We walked right into a lost decade of discovery. It all goes back to March 2011. The Fukushima disaster hits. In its wake, uranium prices just completely cratered, and investment in finding new mines dried up. For nearly 10 years, from about 2012 all the way to 2020, the industry basically stopped looking for new world-class deposits. This wasn't just a market dip, it was a structural break in the entire supply pipeline. And the consequences of that lost decade? Oh, they're plain as day. Look at the giants we found in the 80s, like Cigar Lake and MacArthur River. These were monster deposits, hundreds of millions of pounds at insane grades of over 15%. Now compare that to the best discoveries of the 2010s. They're a fraction of the size and have much, much lower grades. We're just not finding the same quality anymore. It's not even in the same league.
So where does that leave us? Well, it leaves us staring down a future that one source chillingly describes as chatting by candlelight. Because that normal market logic we all rely on, the idea that a higher price will solve everything, it just doesn't apply here.
I mean, think about it. You can't just throw money at this problem today and magically shrink a 30-year timeline, right? A high price can't manufacture the pure geological luck you need to find another monster deposit, and it certainly can't speed up the regulatory and permitting hurdles, which, if anything, are only getting longer and more complex. And that, right there, is the single most critical takeaway from all of this. The price signal, the investment, the exploration that was needed to prevent the supply crisis of the 2030s and 40s, we needed it back in 2010. And it just didn't come. We might have already missed our window to act.
So all this exciting talk of a nuclear renaissance, of powering our AI future and solving climate change, without urgent, massive investment in exploration right now, could end up being nothing more than idle chat by candlelight. What does a world that bets big on nuclear but forgets to find the fuel actually look like? That's the question we might all be forced to answer, sooner than we think.